Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Gagnon Atelier. I'm your old pal, Tim Gagnon, and this is the Modern Masters Podcast. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here. Wasn't that some great graphics? I was so proud of that. It's pretty exciting. Let me just let you guys know our new bumper graphics were created for us by my friend Lucas Bessie over at Edge Digital Agency. He's a great friend of mine. His company has been working with me when we were just starting out the Gagnon Atelier, trying to get an online presence, and he was great with giving us advice and coaching, as well as now, as you can see, creating us some great bumper graphics. And so we're really excited about them. If you need any type of graphics like that, or videos or anything digital media, they can do it for you. Just go ahead and go to their website right there, edgedigital.agency. Who knew there was a .agency? There's a .agency. And so you can check that out, and I think they do a great job for you. They're originally based out of Panama City Beach, Florida, where I'm at, but they are now over in Texas. So go ahead and check them out on the internet, and they will be glad to help you out. Now, with that said, as always, guys, if you can help me out by going on either Facebook or YouTube and liking us on Facebook on the Gagnon Atelier page, hit the follow button, or go over to our YouTube channel. We've got a great YouTube channel. Every Modern Masters podcast is on. It's cataloged on there, archived on our YouTube channel. So if you can go over to our Gagnon Atelier YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You will get notified whenever we go live and whenever we post new videos. We have a bunch of new videos coming up. We've got some art history videos. We've got some tutorial videos. We've got some product review videos on there already. We've got so many great videos and so many more coming up that I think you guys are going to have a great time if you go over there and check it out. So if you can do that for me, that would be great. Now, let's get on to the meat of the show. I am really excited. You guys, we got a great show. I'm a little excited. What we are going to be bringing on today for you is my dear friend, Jennifer Balkan. She is such a good artist. Just wait till you see her art. It's so good. It's so good. I just love her brush strokes and just the thickness of the paint and the color. She is like, when it comes to color and color theory and values and temperature and things like that, she is an absolute master. When we say the Modern Masters Podcast, I ain't playing with you. I bring you the best of the best of the best in the art world today. And with that said, let's bring on Jennifer. Here she is, Jennifer Balkan. I don't know if you could hear me just bragging on you, but I was bragging on you big time.
So sweet. Thank you.
Well, welcome to the show. It's been a while. We originally did this when over a year ago, actually about this time. And it was, let's see here. This was actually before the Modern Masters Podcast. We did a class at Gulf Coast State College.
That's right.
And we brought you on. And actually, what's really cool is this month, the Modern Masters Podcast, we're going to be airing it live back again at Gulf Coast State College in the Encore program. So that'll be fun.
Nice.
And so we're going to have an audience behind me here pretty soon. That'll be fun. But you came on the show and you did that, but we had all kinds of glitches. Poor thing, I couldn't make your video because we kept like dropping.
I know.
It was awful. We had just technical difficulties, but
I'm trying to move that annoying light is in the background, which is
cool.
Okay, that's better.
There we go.
Yeah, okay. Good.
So it was that was a great conversation, but I really wanted to get you back on because so many things have changed, with life and with our careers and with everything else, that I really wanted to get you back to talk about a bunch of stuff. And you've got some great things going on right now, coming up. You've got a big show coming up and some different things. I wanted to have you on to talk to you about those things, and also just to share some of your artwork with our viewers and to talk with you about some controversial subjects. Dun, dun, dun. We got our own theme music. That was it. It's a low budget operation. That was the theme music. So yeah. All right. Well, let me get the graphics geared up so we can brag on you a little bit right in the beginning. You are kind of known for a very, very, your style is so unique and so powerful. And your subject matter that you paint is just amazing. My wife is such a huge fan of yours. It is not even funny. You know, it's kind of funny. You know, I don't know how you are, but for me, it's like if I'm going to buy a piece of art to hang in the house, like there's none of my art in my house. You know, but it's like there are really, it's going to sound strange. I have so many friends that are artists, but there's really only 2 artists that I would like. I'm going to one day buy some artwork. And it's yours and one other artist. And that's it. That's it. And one of the things I like is that it's like, okay, I really appreciate artists that paint very differently than I do. And it draws me and it fascinates me. And I'm like, oh, wow, how do they do that? And oh, look at that brushwork, things like that. And yours does that for me. It always has. And it's just, it just sucks you in. And I love that about your artwork. So I want to brag on some of your artwork here first. And then I want to have you talk to us a little bit about your methodology when you paint and some of the things you focus on when you paint, because I've got some slides here that you'll be able to look at and talk to us about the kind of really show what I'm talking about to the audience. So if you're watching, guys, this is a good one. You definitely want to hang out for this, to see this. Get your notepads out. I got my notepad right here, and I will be taking notes. And also for the big controversy that we'll be talking about at the end, we're gonna light the internet on fire. It's literally gonna catch YouTube and Facebook aflame, and we're gonna get. Of course, this is like clickbaiting. Who knew? You know, it's like it could happen on the Gagnon Atelier. We're gonna clickbait the bejeebies out of you. It's all right. So all right, here's a self-portrait that you did. Here we go. Look at that. Look at that. See what I'm talking about? Look at those brush strokes. I just love it. I just love it. Tell us about this painting.
So this was a painting that I did for a show, my first international solo show, which was last summer in Ireland at the Chimera Gallery. And that body of work was all about what I think of as this beast within us, basically this the multiple aspects of our personality and who we are, who we feel like we are internally versus who we project ourselves to be to our world around us. And so this particular piece is called Two-Faced, and you can, obviously see the literal manifestation of that that title, and so taking it, which is something that I like to play with. I like to think about a concept and take it or represent it literally. So the idea of us wearing masks, and the word mask has a whole other, something that we think about very differently right now in this moment. But before COVID, I was painting masks, but not that kind of mask. More of a lot of animal faces, a lot of just basically another aspect of ourself is the way I thought about it. And so yeah, so here this one is both looking outward, looking off to the side, looking inward. That's what's happening in this particular piece. Technically, I'm playing with sort of two-dimensionality and three-dimensionality, with that lens, that the view of the sky in the background. You can kind of almost feel like you're looking through a lens, but and sort of the juxtaposition of that circular form behind me.
Right.
Yeah, that's basically in a nutshell what this painting is about.
Right. And it really is a powerful piece. I mean, when I look at it, it's like, obviously we can't look at the back of your head and see another face coming out, but it does, it speaks. It really does. It speaks to that. This is who I am on the inside, and this is who I show the world. And sometimes they're not the same. And, and sometimes, the person on the inside can be angry, ugly, sad. We're doing the opposite on the outside. So I think it's one of those paintings where, my students that I teach at the college, we talk about, how art can look outward, but it can also look inward, and talk about those inner things. And that's what makes art so powerful. And this piece in particular, it tells a story, and it makes you think when you look at it. It makes you, it just gets those gears turning, and it's a very contemplative piece, which is really great. All right, let's look at this next one. I love this one. This next one is this is, look at that. Look at that precious baby child. Tell us about this one. Look at this. And it's got gold leaf on it, which I love painting with gold leaf. I don't do anything else on top of gold leaf.
Yes, you do. The paintings of this girl are very special to me. My subject is a child, not so much a child anymore, but named Hezekiah. She has been my son Carlo's classmate since kindergarten, and now they're 11 and 12. So not the little kids they were. But my gosh, Tim, I'm blanking out I did a few years ago, and I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it certainly was. This was an older one. The
the title of that sometimes.
The title was Warrior.
Okay, Warrior. Yes. Okay, I was like, because the other one was When I Grew Up, and this one was Warrior. Thank you. And actually, let me say a moment about titles, because titles, for some artists, titles are kind of everything, or they have them before the piece is made, or they inspire. So for me, the titles come about as I'm working, and sometimes they don't. Actually, sometimes they come about as I'm working on the piece, and then other times I come up with it afterwards, and so it's, anyway, it's much more about what it is. But at any rate, so this painting was the first that I did of a couple of paintings of her. And then later, actually, she's posed for me since then. But I really was excited to paint this child. I wanted, several things. I really wanted an African-American little girl, child. And and the fact that, it was more like I wanted to paint Hezekiah, and she's African-American, and it just kind of fit everything that I was feeling at that time. For painting, and I'd known her and her mom for a while, and it just felt really, really good. So when I approached her mom, Candace, to see if she'd be interested in posing for me, after she asked her, and she was like, yes. So it was like it started a really cool relationship on that end, where she's posed for me a few times, and actually she has embarked on this artistic modeling pursuit.
Oh, wow.
Based, or I'm not going to say based. She's a talented kid and very inspired. But I think the modeling aspect of posing for me really launched something within her. So that's really, really neat.
That's great. Yeah, when I look at this, especially with the name Warrior, I look at this little girl, and I bet you she's fierce.
Yeah, well, she has a warrior of a mom who is just an incredible human social justice warrior, like just basically like on the front lines of like the action of what's going on right now.
Wow.
In our
Yeah. This, I look at her and go ahead.
So with Hezekiah, so anyway, what I wanted to do with her, and I did two paintings and ended up of this particular little set. I wanted to get a hold. I wanted to dress her up in some really like regal looking clothing, and the dresses that or the replicas of these dresses were sort of Renaissance era inspired stuff,
Right?
very European Renaissance era, and so I really liked the juxtaposition of her being an African American kid wearing this clothing, and because it's just not something expected or what.
Right. There's a juxtaposition there. Those two things don't normally go together.
Yeah, and so there's that aspect of it. I and this feeling that this little kid is, there's so much there in looking at really any child and where they come from, and all of the history that the context of that, that little human, and her, basically her history, her ancestry, where she is right now, what will become of this kid, and also I've got this. And this is something that I play with a lot. I'm sort of also doing this right now in some of the work I'm doing right now. But this halo effect around her head, and so this sort of like magical, godly, angelic shape. It's and that,
right.
Of course, Tim, you have a lot. I'm sure would have a lot to say historically about that. But like pulling, basically pulling that from paintings of the 12 and 13.
Right. The iconography of that era. Yeah, you can see it in this painting.
And the flatness of it. Like I love that. I love merging that abstract, that abstraction, that flatness of it with the three-dimensionality of her figure, and
right.
so playing and I've kind of met the full circle around into her dress, into the border of the collar of her dress, and so it creates this this almost like heavenly affection, this really sweet.
Right. Yeah. When I look at it, it looks like, she's this little saint, and she's, but the term warrior also is powerful, and she's standing there and she looks like she's deep in contemplation. The circular halo around her head is like trapping her thoughts. And I just see that. It's just so beautiful, such a beautiful painting. And,
in this particular case, the title like really directs you, like, because this painting could be titled something else entirely, and one would feel fairly different about it.
Oh yes, yeah. I think the title really works with the painting.
That was there I was talking about titles and how at what point I come up with it, and how significant it is to the visual piece. It's funny because I always, when I go look at work of when I go to a gallery or museum and look at other people's work, I never like to look at any of the text around the work until I really take it in, and that includes the title, because I don't be pushed into thinking about it in a certain way. I want to feel everything visually. Because I know what I'm doing, what I'm thinking about when I'm making a painting, and I wish for the viewer to take it all in visually first,
Right.
and then come around to whatever descriptors there are,
Mhm.
and go, oh, or oh yeah, or whatever it is, you know. And
And
so
naming a painting can be really arduous. It can stress you out sometimes, you know, and I'm the same way. It's like sometimes I'll have a name of a painting or it's a
Mhm,
concept, and then
mhm,
I'll paint the concept.
mhm.
And then other times I'm just painting and I'm like, what am I going to name this thing? I don't know, you know, and it's,
Sure.
you know, I like Jackson Pollock's attitude, number 5,
Right, right.
number
Yeah,
4, you
yeah.
know, that's really the
Well,
way.
I've totally been there too, and just been like, I don't know, I can't even put words on it.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny though, but when I go to a gallery and I see a piece of art that says untitled, I'm like, you wimped out.
I know it was hard, but
Yeah, it's like that's the hardest part. You wimped out. You know, it's like don't put untitled on your artwork. You know, and at least if you do portraits, you at the worst thing, the least thing you could do is just call it the name of the person.
right.
You know, it's like,
Right.
but saying
Yeah.
untitled, it's like,
Uh-huh.
you wimp. You know,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Totally.
that's funny. That's funny. Well, let's see here. Oh, we got a comment already. Barbara Hack says,
Ah!
stunning work. Of course, it's stunning work. Jennifer Balkan
Oh,
painted it.
love you.
Barbara was on the show just a couple weeks ago.
I
And
know,
she
and
did
I
a
loved
great
it.
job. Yeah, we love Barbara. She is a dear, dear friend. She is so sweet. It's funny. We stayed after the show. Her and I talked for another 3 hours.
Oh, that's
We
awesome.
just hit it off great. She is wonderful. I met her the first time I went to the Portrait Society conference, and it was
Uh-huh.
her first time as well.
Uh-huh.
And we were both like trying to make that transition to full-time artist. And so it's kind of funny. We're both there, but it was like at the time we were like, okay, how do we do this? And
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
and she went alone to the conference. I went alone to the conference. She didn't know any. Well, she knew a few people. I just knew like nobody. So it was an adventure. But all right, and that's actually where I met you. So that worked out great.
Indeed, indeed.
All right, now we're going to show one of your next pictures here, and then this is where we're getting into that signature style of yours,
Hmm.
and that thing. I mean, we've already seen your style, but we're going to zoom in on some of your artwork here now. So talk to us about this. This was actually, I believe, this was a demo that you did.
Hmm.
So here we go. Look at that paint.
Oh,
Isn't that just, oh man. I'm having a moment. Excuse me. Wait a minute. Give me a minute. I'm all right. Look at that paint.
I did this one fairly recently, getting ready for my first remote portrait workshop. So this is a pandemic pandemic painting.
Pandemic painting. Boy, that's a name for a painting.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that right now they're all pandemic paintings. But this, so this is Carla Najathi, who is one of our excellent local art models here in Austin, and I've worked with Carla like for quite a bit, and so always a pleasure to get to work with her and paint her. And so for this particular painting, I've done paintings live of her when she's modeled, actually, like in my classes over the years, and this was from a photo shoot in preparation for this remote painting stuff, and so I basically recorded myself doing a painting of her.
From a photo or from a photo?
From a photo, yes.
Okay.
Took a bunch of photos. What I was trying to do for my students was give them, knowing that they'd be working from an image, and I really like to teach painting from life. I had various perspectives around her head, like much like a sculptor would do if they were let's just say doing a commission, or didn't have the opportunity to work from something from life. They would have all what do you call it? Photographs going around the subject matter to catch that or capture that dimensionality around
Right.
the subject. So anyway, yeah. So I painted Carla, and that painting is a 12 by 16 And so really able to get into the detail, the strokes of her face, which is really probably my favorite thing to do about painting, painting flesh and like getting in there, and getting detailed and being able to really play with the surface quality.
Right. And that's really what I want to talk to you about is your methodology when you're painting, say, a face. One of the things that I'm drawn to about your artwork is the fact that I can see the paint. I can see the brush strokes. I can see the thickness, the viscosity of the paint. That's what I'm drawn to. It looks like a painting. And it reminds me in many ways of the older Rembrandts, where you can see that thick paint. And I just love that. But also the colors, a lot of people, when they're looking at your paintings and they look at that, they're like, those colors don't look like they should be the right colors. But when you convert your paintings to black and white, they're like, they look like perfect. So people ask me like, well, why does she put different colors in there? So if you could explain your methodology in the colors that you place, because when we zoom in, we can see that there are colors there that are like, some are warm, some are cool, and they're butted right up against each other. You've got all kinds of different, things going on. Talk to us about your understanding of values, color temperature, and things like that. And I'm going to show you another slide, and maybe it'll go a little bit to explain a little bit more. You can see on the forehead of this one on the bottom, you see blues, and I'm looking at your face right now. There's no blue on it. And if I look at my forehead, it's really shiny, but there's no blue in it. So explain to me your thought process when you paint. And of course, when you look at the black and white photo next to it, you don't see the blue and the grays that are right next to each other. On the one side, you don't notice them at all. They're gone because they're the same value. And so explain to us a little bit your thought process and the way that you do this. It's such stunning artwork. I want to learn a little bit, and I want my viewers to hear your thought process on the way your process.
Sure. So for one thing, I'll say about the painting of Carla, and also I'm trying to remember the one on the bottom, but definitely the one of Kelly, another lovely friend and art model here in Austin. So those are all done with my quote limited palette. And basically what that is
when you say limited palette, how many colors are you talking?
Sure. Essentially 3 main colors plus white. Well, white is a color, but so what those are a, what I consider to be a primary red, a primary yellow, and I can give pigments out after pigment numbers, and a primary blue, and a white. And then and as far for an underpainting, when I'm teaching and working and showing students, I use a transparent oxide red to do what I call, basically a value sketch underneath it. And so I create that, that array of color and value and temperature changes all just with that. And so really what students are doing, like what I'm doing is I'm spending a lot of time desaturating color, because those are very full saturated colors on the color wheel.
Right.
And so it sounds tedious, but once you get into like the swing of things, and you're just doing it with enough practice, it becomes pretty intuitive. And
right.
How much of one pigment you need to make an adjustment, just a subtle adjustment to
right. When you desaturate your colors, are you adding gray to them, or are you adding the complementary color?
The complementary color. And
okay.
that's key in what I do, and the way you know, I always, there's so many ways of doing this. You know, clearly there's this myriad of ways to paint, certainly. And what I really like, you know, was a technique that, it's interesting when you think of some of these things as techniques that were like invented or done for the first time, but the Impressionists were some of the very first painters to lay color, alternate primaries and complements around form to convey the turning of form, you know, while actually going up and down value range. And so, and when you know, would get up close to some of the, you know, some of this work, you could really discreetly see those different colors side by side, color / temperature / value, right? So, and then moving back, you know, our brains can do what, you know, is referred to as optical mixing, and from a little bit of a distance, that particular array of color information is your brain reads that as around form, right? And so I love the elegance. You know, I see that as a very elegant way of creating the illusion of three-dimensionality. And
right. That's all painting really is at the end of the day. Drawing and painting is creating an optical illusion, 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional space.
Yeah, and so as far as so when I am graying down color or desaturating, I'm thinking in terms of what is the opposite to this color, rather than literally put gray into it, which plenty, you know, many artists do.
Yeah, many artists do that, you know, and I like the way you described it as desaturating as opposed to tint, tone, shade. You know, and so for the viewers that don't know, you know, tinting is adding white, toning is adding gray, shading is adding black. So tint, tone, shading to change your color.
Actually, that's new for me.
Oh, is that new for you? Yeah, it's called tint, tone, and shade. So yeah, you add white, you're tinting, and because if you think about it, like if you want to lighten a red, if you add white, you just change it to pink.
Sure.
So you're tinting the color. But if you want to lighten it, sometimes adding yellow is the way to go to a red. The same thing with the green. If you want to darken a green, adding black might not be the best option because it changes it so dramatically. But if you add blue to a green, it will darken it a little bit, deepen the color. And so, but yeah, tint, tone, shade. But what you're doing by using a complementary color is desaturating it. Because ideally, if you've got an actual opposite on the color wheel and you bring them together, you should get to a gray in the center. 90% of the time, you get like an olive tone, which is how artists get their flesh tones a lot of times on a limited palette, especially limited palette that you have. I don't see any, you know, yellow ochre or raw sienna, burnt sienna, or any colors, raw umbers. I'm not seeing any of that in your thing. So you're creating your flesh tones by complementary colors.
Yes. There was a time where I was using some yellow ochre, which I found to be a wonderful convenience color. And then I decided, nope, I'm making that. So. Right.
And I love that about you because I'm a big fan of yellow ochre. I love my yellow ochre.
I
love it. You know, because I remember when I was doing my when I was working on Illuminated Messiah and I was doing the initial painting of Christ, you had mentioned like it's very interesting the color tone. You were interested in the skin tone that I was using on Christ because he wasn't a white dude.
Yeah.
You know, and so you kind of notice, you're like, hey, wait a second, that don't look like the yellow-haired, blue-eyed Jesus that you usually see in the books, you know. But yeah, I use, when I was painting that, it's yellow ochre, you know, some quinacridone magenta, some white, and a little bit of burnt umber is how I get that flesh tone that I like. But the way you do it, girl, you make your work a lot harder.
I know. And it's funny. I think some people are just like, why don't you, like, especially students who may be new to me sometimes, it's like, well, can I just use my alizarin crimson or my, and I'm like, well, no.
Right. And but that's the great thing. I'm going to pull this up so I can talk to you face to face here. But that's one of the things that I really appreciate about what you're doing is you are gaining a mastery of color theory and value that is crucial. And that shows true mastery by purposely doing it the hard way. You get way better and more skilled than doing it the easy way. Now, the easy way, you can still get those colors, but by forcing yourself to get these colors with a much more limited palette and a limited range and no earth tones at all, you have to make your earth tones. You're gaining a mastery that is so much better.
But part of the inspiration for me to do that was this notion, or not notion, but actually achieving a color harmony. And so sorry, I'm suddenly hearing a little echo. Like, I guess it's just the way it is. Okay. And so
it's your speaker. If you turn down your speaker, that'll help. Or if you put a headphone in, that'll take away the echo.
It was totally fine before. I should have. I didn't bring any. Oh well.
Oh, it'll be fine.
It's not that bad. But at any rate, before I turned to a limited palette, which was I don't know, but I guess like 5 years ago or so, maybe more now at this point. I had a fuller palette, more typical, 12, 13 colors that I thought I could never live without at the time, like Viridian green and yellow ochre and cad red light. I loved the combination of cad red light and Viridian green. And at any rate, a bunch of nice colors. And so when I thought about being harmonious, achieving a color harmony in my painting, I had to think about it because and was pretty interested in achieving that, and looking at looking at around the wheel and thinking about analogous color schemes, split complementary, triadic. This is all kinds of.
Right now we're geeking out. Yeah, we're going deep. We're going deep. We just dove into the deep end of the swimming pool.
But actually thinking about that, and why is a particular scheme pleasing to the eye?
Right.
There's some science, optical stuff going on behind that. Why we look at that one works and that one doesn't, and I don't know really why, but that just works for my eye.
Right. I was just on the Portrait Society had a workshop with Michelle Dunaway yesterday. And she was talking about color temperature. The whole thing was about color temperature and value. And she was telling us that an ophthalmologist explained to her that when you use, like in your paintings, where you had a warm color next to a cool color, but they're the same value, that she said it causes, I can't remember if it was the rods or the cones or something in your eye starts to vibrate. And it releases dopamine in your brain.
I love
so
that.
It actually makes you like the painting more. So
it's all very manipulative.
The brain is, but that's the thing, it's color theory is that powerful.
Sure. No,
when you really start to get into color and the manipulation of it and really working it, it does affect the human mind in powerful ways, and it does make things more universally pleasing to the eye. And so, and that's part of the skills that you've mastered in that intense color theory studying that you've done.
Yeah. So when I got turned on to, actually it was at the Portrait Society.
All good things happen at the
I
portrait.
know, all these, yeah.
They really do. I was a little bummed because they obviously weren't able to do it this year. They're doing it virtually, but
I know.
but I will be back. I'm going to Washington D.C. next year. I'm going to be there.
Yes, yes. And I witnessed a fabulous. Oh my gosh, I'm tired this morning. A fabulous demonstration on the limited palette, and or just not. It was more of like what you can do with flesh tones. And the idea of that you only need 3. You need a red, a yellow, and a blue, and a white to create any flesh.
Right.
And so now it was not necessarily a particular red, a particular yellow, or a particular blue, but I came home thinking that, okay, well, why don't I just try this with just as red as you can, basically, instead of desaturating, instead of coming to the table with like a Venetian red or a burnt sienna, or, then let me just go with a true red, a true yellow.
Right, as high chroma as you can get, full red.
Yes, and then just take them down when I need to, and that way I can be as red as I need to or not, and so forth and so on.
Right.
So that's basically what I took away from that, and it's definitely, I always tell people when I'm teaching this stuff that it's a high learning curve. It's very frustrating. You're going to be way too colorful when you don't want to be.
Right.
Way too chromatic. But there's such joy when changes happen very subtly. And so, when you're mixing up like kind of basically a fair-skinned person who maybe has a little pink in their skin, let's say. So it's more, you're doing some kind of majority white and then a wee bit of red and a wee bit of yellow, like very, very small little pinches. And then you get put a little more red in, so it's just a little pinker than orange. And then you've got this very saturated, or well, there's a lot of white in it, but it's a fairly chromatic, saturated color that you've made, and you need to knock it down a wee bit, meaning dull it down just a little bit with a dot of blue. So basically what's happening, and it's funny when you talk about like, what's in your mix? And you're just repeating yourself. Oh, it's a little red, a little yellow, a little more red, a little less yellow, and a little more blue.
Right.
A lot this, and a little bit of this.
Right. And
but essentially you're using all of your colors all of the time. And so don't, your harmony is inherently happening because everything is going into the mix. And so when I used a fuller palette, I would think about, like, I would actually have a green. I would have a sap green or a viridian green, and I would actually have red. So it was like, oh yeah, those are, fairly complementary. So I just mix those. But this is a little different because I'm thinking about what the complement is, but knowing that I just have to, when you mix the two together, you will need to get the third one in, whatever the third one happens to be, whichever.
Right.
In order to dull that down. So that's like the philosophy. It sounds all very simple, but in practice, it can
be very difficult.
Yeah.
You have to really know what the color you're looking at is, so you know what opposite to put in it. So, and sometimes a color can be so subtle, you're like, well, it looks purple, but it might be more red than blue. So I need to put in something, what color is the opposite of that? And so you got to find that opposite. So I can see that can be very, very tricky and very intense. Have you ever heard of or seen Andrew Tischler's limited palette that he does? He's been experimenting recently with, and he's got a YouTube video on it that I've been playing around with, and it's quite fascinating. he basically, instead of using your primary red, primary blue, or the typical, triad, you use ultramarine blue and you use a red and you use a yellow. He goes in a different direction, and he noticed his inkjet printer.
Oh, are you going to say the CM?
He does the CMYK. Okay. So he uses a magenta for his red, a really strong magenta for his red. He uses a cyan color, which for him is, I'm trying to remember, it's, what was it? It was a teal color that he uses that looks very much like he took his inkjet printer and like put the ink on a paper, and he looked, he's like, okay, what color matches these? So, and then he uses a very, very strong, bright, little bit warmer yellow. And if you take your typical traditional primary colors, your red, your yellow, and the blue, like we think of, like an American flag red, most people use the ultramarine blue. But if you mix those two, your purple is very dark.
Yes. And
when you put white in it, it almost turns like a lavender. But it's a very almost earthy type of a purple. But he was like, I need to get like a hot purple. How do I get a hot purple? But with the CMYK, you mix the magenta and the teal, and it's like the purple is like Barney the dinosaur.
What is the K? I'm trying to think of what the K.
Oh, the K in CMYK is black. And it stands for, in the CMYK product, that goes back to the olden days before digital presses, when you had metal plates. And so it was cyan, magenta, and yellow for those three. And then K stands for key. And that's black. So, and I only know this because I worked in graphic design for 20 years. More than that, actually. I'm an old man. But the K, when you're printing like a magazine, and you're doing graphic design, one of the things that you never want to do is have the text be made with the CMY.
Okay.
You make it with those plates because, the paper's running through a printer at 200 miles an hour and the machine's shaking. So when the stamp comes down on each color, they're not lined up exactly. Now, in a photo of a person in a magazine, that wiggle room, it's okay. But on text, you can't have that. So if you put 100% of CMY, you'll get black. But what they do is there's actually in the program Adobe InDesign, when you send it to the printer, there's a button you actually click that says print all text on K. So what you're telling it is you're telling the printer only print with the black plate or only print with the K ink cartridge. And so that's how that works. And it's just like with your inkjet printer, you can tell your printer only print black and white. And what it will do is it will only use your black ink cartridge. And that'll save your other colors. Because if you just try to print something, it will always print with all the colors and not black. That's why your ink cartridges are running out so fast. So whenever you print something black and white, print it with just hit the button, just black and white. And that's what K is. K is black.
Gotcha.
And the white is the paper. That's how
I knew that K was black, but I wondered why it was K.
Yeah, it stands for the key plate. So you could make it any color you want. And a lot of times in printing, when they do specialized printing, like maybe with metallic inks or stuff, they change the K plate.
Okay.
And so that's how they do that. So that's the reason why. Little nerd talk there for the graphic designers out there. So let's transition now to lighting the internet on fire.
Oh God.
Controversy. You started this. It was your fault. So, but I have to say I was on your side completely. But as always, big shakaroony, Facebook is one of those places where if you want to start a firestorm of controversy and arguing and screaming and hollering, you could just say, I like bananas, and someone will get offended that you didn't like kiwis, and you're racist against kiwi fruit. I'm like, it's like, it's insanity. And the world we are living in the twilight zone. It's just crazy town out there. But we're going to do that. We're going to because you had mentioned a subject. You had asked a question because you had, and I'm refreshing your memory here. You had asked the question because you learned something that some of the artists that, we all compete with when we do juried art shows. And for those of you that don't know what a juried art show is, a juried art show it's basically an art contest. And so what happens is either a museum or an organization, it actually goes all the way back to the Renaissance when patrons would say, I want a statue or a fresco or something, and the different art guilds would compete for the job, and they would win the contract. So, but a juried art show is they'll usually have a subject matter, and they'll say, we're going to do a show on living by the sea. And then artists from that area will do art about living by the sea, whatever the subject is, and they'll submit art. And there's usually a jury, a group of people, or sometimes just one artist that decides what art is going to get in the show, because there's always limited space. They can only hang so many paintings. And so they bring the art in, and then there's a judge who judges the art in the show. And there are prizes given out for, best in show, first, second, third, People's Choice Award. There's all kinds of different awards that people get. Now that's what a juried art show is. And that's one of the ways that artists get a name for themselves. It's where we start to really get ourselves out there, where buyers see our artwork for the first time, potentially. It's the coming of age for emerging artists. It really is. It's where you build your career and get your following. In the old days, now the digital age and Instagram and different things, artists are finding ways to explode into the world in different ways. But the juried art show is the tried and true tradition in the art world. But you had noticed, and you're not sweating yet, are you? You look a little nervous. She's like, I'm ready. You had noticed that a lot of the people that you were competing with in these art shows were not drawing 100% from life or drawing 100% beginning to end in their painting. They were transferring images from photos and basically tracing them onto the canvas and then painting over that. And you asked a very, very pointed question, and that was, is that cheating? And then the internet got ripped in half with a giant violent earthquake of rage and anger and people getting offended, because there are artists that do that. And there are a lot of big name artists that do that. And so I guess your question is you felt like you weren't playing on a level playing field when some people are transferring an image and you are not, and then who's winning the contest. And the way I look at it is, if we were in a foot race and I somehow got away to start 15 yards ahead of you, I'm going to win the race every time, potentially, unless you're an Olympic level athlete. I'm going to win, And so if you're transferring an image, you're taking a shortcut that gets you way further ahead in the process. And because you've traced it or you've transferred it, however, or you projected it or whatever, it's going to be perfect because it's from a photo. And so the skill level it takes to just paint it from eye, that's going to set you at the starting point. So it's not like a level playing field. It's not a fair race, equal footing. And so you ask that question, are they cheating? It's like, to me, if you start 10 yards ahead of the next person, you're taking a shortcut. To me, that is kind of cheating. But some people, the other side of that, the devil's advocate side, were like, doesn't matter how you start, it's how the painting finishes. So talk to us about how you feel about that and what your thought process is in a juried art competition. Because I'll go one step further. There are times where I will transfer an image. Mm-hmm. And it's for usually commercial work that I'm doing, commercial artwork that I'm doing, that I have a massively tight deadline that's literally there are weeks I have to do 48 pet portraits in a week. They're getting transferred because they got to get shipped out on Monday, So I'll transfer it. But if I'm doing a painting for a show or an exhibit or something like that, then I'm going to put a little more work into those and a little more heart into it. You know, I'm going blank on his name. The greatest commercial artist in American history. Why am I going blank on his name? Norman Rockwell. Yeah, he projected all the time. And so there are times, if you have a deadline, that I can see it's okay to do that, you know, or if you're doing a mural and you need to project it onto a wall, that's different, you know. But talk to us about your thoughts on transferring versus painting from beginning to end from life.
Okay, let me just get something straight.
Yes.
Established is that I was not arguing that this was from life versus transfer.
Okay.
Because I'm talking about using whatever reference material. Okay, so yeah, so because that's a really different animal, and I don't even know what contests or juried competitions even exist anymore where they say they require you to work from life in order to be a competitor. I think there used to be that aspect. I believe it in the British Portrait Award that used to be the case. It's not anymore. It's they want you to have had a life I think a real life interaction with your subject. So, you know, you were to have taken the photograph or whatever, or maybe they're partial or something like that. But so anyway, just to be clear, Tim, because I don't want to, that I was, my statement that day and just my philosophy is not saying, I'm not arguing that you must paint from direct observation versus not.
Okay.
So it was more of whatever your source material is, reference, which is, you know, often photograph, that is fine. But I was skeptical and critical of those that were like literally just tracing for competition or whatever. Now, it's such a bigger, I guess, like, or I was questioning, I guess I was posing the question for artists out there, people out there, on their thoughts on it. And just because, you know, just getting frustrated and, you know, seeing winners in certain competitions and what's interesting is that it's usually fairly obvious to me. It's usually obvious when I see work that has been traced. There's you know, like, so at Atelier Dojo, the school that I'm part of, you know, art, and now everything is different because we are, you know, in a remote world and teaching.
Right.
But you know, we really believe that the best way to improve your skills as a representational painter is to paint from life.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
So now what that means in the course of one's journey through painting and career is that get those skills and continue to you know, like, practice that, hone those skills, really be able to pull something from three-dimensional space and translate it to your canvas, to your flat surface with, you know, using a good, strong, like, academic drawing, you know, a drawing set, a skill set, being, you know, measuring technique. You know, that's a different animal, like measuring
Right.
space into your flat surface. Learn how to do that. Assess your value range, you know, your degree from light to dark. Learn how to create something from life on your paper, on your canvas. That will get you so far in this kind of work that we do.
Right. I really do feel like you know, tracing and transferring, and gridding is another example. If that's all you do,
You're
you
limited.
will stagnate your skill set.
Now, so okay, so get those skills,
Yep.
and you know, there are some super purist artists that are like, that is all they will do. Like
Right.
they will never work from anything other than life. I am not that.
Right. I want to say Jeff Hine does that, where he'll only work from life.
He does now. I feel like
Yeah.
I don't know him personally, but I remember his work, the work that I discovered years ago, which I loved. I loved his real colorful pieces. I think he kind of I mean, he's an incredible, you know, amazing painter. And I think that he was working from reference for a while after, like, you know, full mastery of being able to paint anything. And then decidedly, I hope I'm not totally misrepresenting him, but later decided, no, that's not meaningful to me anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I want to say that's correct.
and so, but anyway, so then if you have those skills, you know, you use your reference images, your photographs, and you bring life into them, because a photograph is very limited. I think, like, we have a tendency, maybe not artists, but just people in general, we think photography is a true representation of reality.
Yeah, and it's really not.
It's not, you know, it's very limited in terms, you know, contrast is higher, light is, I mean,
nothing's going to beat your eyeball. And then, especially with these super high definition cameras, you know, one of the things they do in video work, for example, in video, these video cameras are so incredible now. They're high def. People don't like images from digital cameras, and they don't like photos from, like, when I'm talking about portraits, you know, and it's because they capture everything in a high contrast way that your eye doesn't. And so 35 millimeter film was actually nice because it had a little bit of a warm sepia tone to it, and it has a natural Gaussian blur. So in video editing programs, a lot of times there's this button you can push that's basically a filter that will soften the tone, all that stuff down that a digital camera gets, because it's just too harsh. You know, plus the other thing is a camera only has one eyeball. And so it doesn't have depth perception, and that lens is warped. So it gets warped, you know, and I always try to explain to my students that the way we have binocular vision. This eye sees over there, this eye sees over here, and where they cross, that's where you focus on something. And so, you know, I always tell them, I said, look at the model. I said, now close one of your eyes. And I said, you'll see this ear. Now close your other eye. You can see this ear. But you can't, and you know, whenever you do that trick where you look at something and you go like this with your eyes, the person will jiggle a little bit. And that's because your eyes are actually seeing both sides. You're seeing a rounded thing, but a camera, it's like looking at something like this.
Sure.
You only see part of it. You don't see all around it. And so, you know, yeah, painting from photos is, I mean, I paint from photos quite often.
Yeah, me too.
Because, you know, the way I work with my narrative paintings, I have to like build scenes because these things don't exist. These places don't exist. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? So I'm either building a maquette, and that's kind of a James Gurney thing where he builds like things, and I'll build like a model of what I'm painting and I'll photograph it, or I'll have to photograph the models and then digitally in Photoshop put them into these places that I've invented, and then I use that as my reference photo when I'm painting. So I mean, I get painting from photos, but definitely painting from life or drawing from life.
I don't want to get cut before I like my whole point, because
okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just because then I'll like, you know, people will target me. Say my piece on this. So anyway, so basically, yeah. So you utilize the good stuff that you know, and bring that in to your reference material, so you're not a slave to your reference material. You like, so
very good point.
You can create the illusion of life and breathing, and so So when I think when folks like are just are truly copying a photo, if they're not bringing that richness of life study into it, it looks like a copied photo, you know. So I mean, it's
You can tell. You can tell.
Now, like my just kind of like quick question on Facebook, because, you know, I don't know how often do we really think some of these things through before we just post it, and boom, you know, there goes the there goes the tirade, like just but so it's sort of like, you know, the bigger question is, what are jurors looking for? So if they're just looking for just this, you know, hyper realistic image, okay, well, I don't really have a like,
hyper realistic look. No.
Like,
And that's the thing, you know, it's like juried shows are so subjective.
And it, you know, so I think like, I don't like, yeah, it kind of depends on what the juror is looking for, actually. Now, it's, and it, you know, I remember arguing with an artist I know who I like, and, you know, it depends on your end game. And you said it, Tim, you were like, what's most important? And if your end game, I mean, who am I to say, no, what you're doing is not as, you know, that is not good. That's not the word I'm looking for, but I don't know, ethical in this world. Like, what, I don't even like.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like I know people who, like, their product is the art, like, for them, like that. It's like, you know, everything else is tedious. And then they create this thing that was exactly what they wanted, and it looks just like the reference, and they're psyched, and that's what
right. And they're psyched. And I guess for me, one of the things that I've come across in training artists, and I don't know if you've had this come to you in your atelier, but in my training, I have a lot of new artists that come in. You know, they want to learn to paint, they want to learn to draw, and I always make you start. You got to take my classical drawing class before you can do the painting class, because it's just, you got to have that foundation. And it's invariable. Someone will come in. It's usually a young person, but they will come in, and I have, okay, everybody, show me some of your artwork so we can get a gauge as to where you are. You know, and they'll show their artwork, and invariably there's the one person in the class, and they come up and they show a drawing, and it's from a magazine. You know, they copied it from a magazine, and it's the exact size of the magazine, and it's photographic. It's done with pencil, and it's photographic, and I know exactly how they did it. And I sit there and I'm like, you know, and I'm like, and everybody's looking at it going, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to draw like them. They're so good. Oh, why am I even here? Why am I bothering? I'm going to say, just wait, you'll see, you're going to do fine. And then we're doing sight size drawing, and we're drawing from life. And I've literally had a person, a young lady, after the second week of drawing from life, run out of the room crying because she realized I can't do it, because she's never drawn from life. And she couldn't draw, I mean, just the basic, you know, the sphere. She couldn't do it because she was so used to doing the grid transfer, drawing the lines on the magazine, drawing it on the 8.5 by 11 paper, and basically copying it and tracing it that way, that she had the skills to do that. But when it came time to just, here, sit down and draw this coffee mug from life at this angle, she struggled so mightily because it was such a new concept for her. And in her mind, she's like, I can't draw. I thought I could draw. I can't draw. And the people around her who had never drawn in their lives were doing a much better job than she was. And it devastated her, you know? And so I'm having to bring her back in the classroom, sit her down, calm her down. And literally the poor thing was hyperventilating. And it's like, you can learn to draw. You've just, you know, it's like everybody else, you know, self-taught artists, when you get into a training program, you realize I got a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Bad habits, you know, that you have to unlearn some things. And she had to unlearn some things. And I find sometimes that that artists that just do the transfers,
Mm-hmm.
and they've developed like their skill level in a very pinholed way where they can't experiment.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do different angles. They can't like draw a person from any angle. You know, if I asked you to sit down and draw me a person sitting down, you wouldn't need to have a person sitting in front of you. You could probably draw me a person sitting down to be anatomically correct and things like that, because you've trained yourself to draw enough that you can do that. Whereas when you're pigeonholing your skills into just one thing of transferring the image, and you're just basically tracing, and then you're coloring it in or you're shading it in, that's not drawing, that's shading, and that's coloring or painting. And so those are different skill sets. And I think that you're hamstringing yourself. I think that you're making a mistake in, you know, for me as an artist, and I'm going to just say it as a person of faith, one of my philosophies in life is God made me an artist, but he expects me to do something with what he gave me. And so it's part of me and my philosophy on life and as an artist is I need to improve my skills, because to me it's an offering. You know, when I'm standing before him on Judgment Day, here's what I did with what you gave me. You know, that's why I look at it. And to me, it's important for artists that take their art seriously to really go out of your way to try to become the best, to raise your skill level the highest you can. And when you start to get into the habit, and it's an easy trap to fall into, of taking shortcuts, you're not going to help yourself. You're actually going to hinder yourself, and you're going to eventually stagnate your skill level. You know, if you were to stop drawing from life right now and go and just do transfers for the next 5 years, in 5 years, you would probably have a hard time drawing from life again, because that skill would begin to drop. And so it's a constant honing of our skills. So, you know, when I look at artists that are, I don't want to call it cheating, but I call it, you're making a mistake. You're harming yourself with this. Learn to, you know, draw from life. That's going to be the best way to get better, to increase your skills. It's okay to learn those things. I mean, shoot, they teach it at college, how to transfer, you know, but understand the purpose for why we transfer images. And if you use them in that way, they won't hinder your skill. They'll actually enhance your skills. And I think that's really like the way I look at it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree with you, Tim. And I also, but I add that it really depends, like, again, you know, who am I to pass judgment on,
right,
what is considered, I don't know, like art worthy of, I mean, I might have my very strong personal opinion. Like to me, I am most impressed by somebody standing over here painting something in space. Like when somebody can do that, and I'm just like, oh, that's just so beautiful.
right.
So like any day, that's what kind of wows.
Right. You appreciate the skill.
The skill and the interpretation and all of that, way more than anything else. But that's me. That's what inspires me. And so I don't want to, you know, I don't know. I have my big opinions, and then the other question is, like, as far as creating something beautiful, artistic and beautiful, and that another person out here, you know, someone else out there, we as artists, we hope that our work resonates somewhere. You know, it's like, it's so it's so fulfilling to me when somebody out there lets me know, or, you know, that they really appreciate a particular painting of mine, or they want to buy it and live with it. Like that's you know, such a great feeling. And so why, you know, that person out there, that consumer, if you will, like of art, they see something that they want and they love and that it moves them and inspires them. And who the F cares on like how it was done? I mean,
right. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah. Who cares how it was made? They don't,
like, they're just like,
they don't.
I am moved and inspired by that. And don't you tell me that it is lesser, my feeling, like don't devalidate
right
experiencing from this piece of art because you say,
that you traced it. Yeah.
Whatever. So, you know what I mean? Like in the end, like, I don't know. Like,
and it's a tough thing. That's why we lit the internet on fire,
I know.
And it's like, because people got mad. People got mad. I mean, it was like, people were like, real cat fight. And it's like, it reminded me of two cats in a bag, it's not pretty.
No, totally.
But, but that's also the internet. But, I think it's important.
Okay. So that, cool. I said somebody loving your work and whatever, and wanting art. Now that is different than the juried competition, which is
exactly
what we were talking about.
Right. And I think in a juried competition, you want a level playing field. Now you were in a show.
My bad is that I'm not applying to the right shows because it's like if I'm competing with a hyper realist who photo transfers, like I don't like that is.
That's apples and oranges.
Is that like why should I even like we're so different.
Yeah, very different.
How are we even competing for the same thing?
Right. And that's almost like, certain shows should have certain genres of art, but when you're talking about realism is broad, hyper realism all the way to
yes. And I think that's the umbrella is just
right. And then you have the portrait society. There's so many different ways to paint a portrait, a hyper realist all the way to Vincent van Gogh. Impressionism. So it's like you can't compare them in a way that, so that's a really tough juried art show. I would not want to be the judge of that,
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I think everybody wants a level playing field. And you were in a show. I'm going to show the picture of it. Here's a picture of you actually in it. Now, this was at the Academy of Realist Art in Boston. And they actually did a show, a contest, an art thing that was a level playing field because it was like invite only. And all of you artists were in a room for how many days?
Oh my God. Like pretty much 40 hours. It was a work week.
Right. So an entire week and you had a model in front of you and then you guys had to paint the model from life, from beginning to end. And then at the end, they juried them. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then here's a picture of the group. There they are.
That was a lot of fun. It was everything. That was like very emotional, stressful, fun, aggravating, all of the things.
Oh yeah, I can imagine the stress. Was anybody just sweating profusely while they were painting?
Yeah, and just God, a lot comes up when you're in a room with a group for a week.
And my gosh, this group of people. These are some of the best artists, the most talented and skilled artists in the world today, and so it doesn't surprise me at all that you're there. And what was beautiful about it was how different everybody's paintings were, the different styles and different things. But just the fact that you're invited, was such a blessing to me to see you there. I was like, go, go, go. And I was so proud of you. But at the same time, it was like, to me, it was like level playing field. And I really felt that was, now mind you, that was obviously a tough show to do because you guys were there for a week. It wasn't like a typical juried art show. It's paintings that, some people submit paintings that they did a year ago to an juried art show, especially if you're an oil painter, because the painting's got to dry before you can hang it for 6 months, before you can ship it off. So it's like, I get that. But this particular Juried show to me was like, finally somebody's doing a level playing field. I plan on at the Gagnon Atelier eventually, I want to be doing shows like this where we bring artists in, because we live in Panama City Beach.
Yeah.
The world's most beautiful beaches. We're going to see how we do with 2 hurricanes in the Gulf right now, because 2020 wasn't weird enough for us,
Uh-huh.
Well, hey, we survived Hurricane Michael, which was the largest hurricane to hit America in like 60 years or something like that. It was a category 5, wiped us all out. And then we got the pandemic, and now we got 2 hurricanes that are going to have a dance in the Gulf right now. And so we'll see what happens. we had murder hornets, now double hurricane.
Thinking about you guys.
Yeah, that's all right. We got the generators, we got the gas tanks, we got all kinds of stuff.
Prepared.
But yeah, we're prepared. This is old hat. I've lived here 30 years on the beach. This is let me think, at least my 12th hurricane.
Wow.
Not to mention all the tropical storms.
Sure.
So, if it's not a cat,
you pay for living on the beach.
hey, this is how it was, no joke. If it wasn't a Cat 4, we didn't even think about evacuating.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm hearing now.
Yeah, it's like, why? It's like we've had worse thundrstorms than this hurricane. This is nothing,
Right.
Like we had a thunderstorm the other day. I thought this is it. We're going to be meeting Jesus here in a minute. It was just a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
So, sometimes the hurricanes aren't that bad. They're like, this is it,
Uh-huh.
And then with Hurricane Michael 2 years ago, it was like, we went to bed. It was a category 3. We woke up, it was a 5. And it's like, well, we can't evacuate now. And so we rode it out in our house. And yeah, it was pretty terrifying, but it was funny because not even a half a mile east, you go over this bridge, and it looked like a nuclear bomb had hit the city. Oh. But my house on the other side of the bridge, I didn't even lose a shingle.
Wow.
It was weird, but yeah, just imagine a Cat 5 tornado, 5 counties wide. Oh my God. Yeah, it was rough, but we made it through, and we're, the city's turning around, and we're getting better every day. So it's taken us a while, but we're back up and running. But yeah, so now we got the tornado. I'm sorry, 2 more hurricanes coming, but we ain't scared. Welcome to 2020. It's been a crazy year. Well, Jennifer, this has been a really good conversation.
Definitely.
It's just we could talk for hours, and we already have actually. We've been talking an hour, 1 hour and 22 minutes, so we're doing really good.
Oh my God.
But I'm going to wrap up this broadcast. What are some of the last things you want to say about anything that we talked about today, or any advice for some artists that may be starting out and may want to get in touch with you? I'm going to put your website back up.
Yeah.
And let's see here. There it is right there. JenniferBalkan.com and AtelierDojo.com. First of all, shame on me. Tell us a little bit about the dojo, because you guys got some online classes that
yes, we do. Atelier Dojo is our art school baby that Denise Fulton, Karen Offit, and I started a few years ago here in Austin, Texas. And it's been wonderful. Now we're in a pandemic, so things are very different than they were, but we really, we worked hard over the last couple of months to sort of just like throw our butts into the remote art teaching art remotely world. And that has been, there's the silver lining in it all is that we've been able to get students and participants in our open studio, our remote open studios from all over the world, which has been amazing.
Yeah, that seemed pretty good. Now, just to let everybody know, like, what does it cost to join one of the open studio virtual classes?
$5.
Are you kidding? It's $5?
Yeah, pretty cheap. I mean, it's not really a class. There's no instruction, but we have a recording of a live model for 3 hours. And it's nice because you really feel like in this odd virtual Zoom world that we're all painting together, which is we want to create,
nice
community. So yeah, you can register for that on our website. We've got 3 of them weekly. And
oh my goodness! All right, folks, you're crazy not to go on.
$5. What
on to Atelier Dojo? $5.
Yes,
that is cray cray. Wow. You definitely have to do. So what are some of the, wow, that's amazing. You definitely need to go look at that if you're watching.
Totally.
So what other classes do you offer online?
So I'm gearing up for an observational still life class that I will teach in the beginning of September for 4 weeks. And what I'm doing actually is like wanting to have people learn how to paint directly remotely, which is kind of odd, but I will have a list of items to procure, very easy, so that we can all sort of put together our own very simple little still lifes in our studios or wherever, in our art spaces. And
I love that.
And paint and I will give instruction on that. And so that's what I'm getting ready to do. And at Dojo, we've got we've got a list of remote classes, which include let's see, constructional anatomy. We've got portrait drawing. We've got more still life, portrait painting. So there's a bunch of classes. We're doing these 4-week classes in our remote form, which seem to work well for people. So yeah, check out.
Outstanding. That is fantastic. I just love it. I just love it. So to my viewers, man, you're crazy not to go to Atelier Dojo right now and check it out. Wow, that's going to be, shoot, I want to go on now. I always tell my students when they're like, oh, I don't have anything. I tell them, you got to draw from life. You got to paint from life. I'm always harping on them about that. And they're like, well, you got a refrigerator? Pull some stuff out. Go in your cupboards, pull some stuff out. Draw your carton of milk or whatever. It's like there's always things to draw. And what I like to do is, my wife, she loves Grey's Anatomy, but she doesn't watch it every week. But when she does it, I know she's going to binge watch for at least 3 hours.
Oh, you can draw her. And
so I set up my easel against the wall. The TV's behind me because, man, to me, the best thing on the TV is the off switch. So I like to set up my easel and I draw her on the couch watching TV because she's not going to move for 3 hours at least. So I just, and so I draw my wife. That's what I do. Or I run around and I've got my little book and, like I've set it up in the bathroom and she's got a shelf with all her perfume and the little knick-knack patty wax and seashells and things. And I'm drawing the perfume, painting the perfume bottle and all that, my little sketchbook. And, you always have something that you can draw from life from. You just got to get into practice of it. So, well, Jennifer, this was a pleasure. It's always wonderful. We are definitely going to do this again. We need to get one of these days. We're going to get all of you guys from the Atelier Dojo. Maybe we can do a show with you guys in the studio. You guys can give us a tour and talk about it. I think we need to do that. That would be a great show to do. So,
thank you so much, Tim. Really a pleasure to have this nice chat.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It is my pleasure. And we had a great time. And this is going to be a good show. We're going to crack the internet in half, you and me. It's going to be great. So we'll stay on here real quick. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience and then I'll chat with you in a little bit. So, all right. Thanks again, Jennifer. Well, guys, I told you it was a good show. A little bit of controversy. It was good. It was a tough conversation. I think she was sweating a little bit. And I think if you smell, I think I could smell the internet burning a little bit from the controversy that we may have started. But, it's important for artists to have those conversations, to try to figure out, our world and what we do and different things. And I think conversations like that are important to have. But with that said, guys, I just want to say thank you for watching. And just remember, guys, if you can, I'm going to go ahead and put this on there. If you can remember to check us out on Facebook, like our page, go on YouTube and subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell. We've got some great videos coming up. We have next week, we have got Ann Mallier-Stevenson coming on. You are going to, she's such a good painter. You're going to love talking to her. She's a pistol too. She is a fireball and I can't wait to talk to her. She's going to be lots of fun. And then in September, we have Joyful Enrique. You are going to love her. She paints sea life, fish, dolphins, whales, sea turtles, jellyfish. Her paintings are so amazing and so glorious. Wait till you get to, you're just going to love her. She is a dear, dear, dear friend. She actually lives here in Panama City Beach, because where else are you going to learn to paint sea life than the world's most beautiful beaches? But she's fantastic. And then on the 25th of September, we have got Eric Rhodes coming on. He is going to be talking to us. He is a publisher of art magazines, and he is just to me, he's one of the father figures in the art world. And so I think that you guys are going to love having a conversation with him. And starting in September with Eric Rhodes, we are going to be in our encore program, where the Modern Masters podcast is going to be coming to you live from Gulf Coast State College in their encore program. So we're going to be doing that for 6 weeks in a row. It's going to be great. We're going to have a live audience behind me when we're doing the show. It's going to be a blast. So with that said, guys, again, thank you for watching. And remember, as always, God loves you, and so does your old pal Tim. We'll talk to you soon.